watching Twin Tiers Evening News with Jeff Androlonis and Alexa Olson. Now, from the Twin Tiers' biggest broadcast news operation, WVTT proudly presents Twin Tiers Evening News.
Good evening, I'm Valerie Tysaner. Alexa Olson is on assignment tonight.
And I'm Jeff Androlonis. Good evening. The big story tonight on Twin Tiers Evening News. A record-setting day for the Dow. Just 1 minute after today's opening bell, the Dow hit 14,192, topping its record close set in October 2007. And 2 minutes later, the Dow topped its all-time intraday high of 14,198.10, also set in October 2007. But that doesn't necessarily mean the economy is going along for the up ride.
There has been a further delinking in many respects in terms of what the stock market does and what the effects on our economy are. We've seen the stock market rise throughout the last 4 years, and yet our economy has still been very stagnant overall. We've seen job numbers not increase at the same rate percentage-wise, obviously, as the market has increased back over to 14,000 points. So I don't think there's necessarily a correlation directly between the two.
Well, plans are shaping up for the Bonaventure Square development. Now, the Department of Environmental Conservation has given their approval to start the project. The Kinley Corporation is developing the site of the former Castle Restaurant and Theater. The $65 million project will feature an apartment complex as well as a 16-lane bowling alley, a laser tag facility, video arcade, and restaurant. Officials are confident that they can draw in students from nearby St. Bonaventure as it is within walking distance. A 100-room hotel and medical offices are proposed for the site as well. Now that the DEC has given approval, the project will go before the Allegheny Town Planning Board. They're hoping to break ground in the spring.
A student at Wellsville Middle School is in trouble tonight for he's set to appear before the Allegheny County Probation Department for possession of a weapon. But the question is, was it really a weapon? According to Wellsville police, officers showed up at the middle school around 10:30 yesterday morning for a report that a student had a gun. The gun turned out to be an airsoft gun that a 12-year-old had brought to school. Airsoft guns are plastic toy guns that shoot plastic pellets with an air piston or a spring. Police say the gun was never displayed and no students were threatened.
Well, a Coudersport attorney has been cleared of some serious charges in an alleged baby for cash scheme. A judge said that Jarrett Smith did not receive a speedy trial, so charges against him have been dropped. Smith was accused of offering Krista Eveland money in 2009 if she would allow his brother and sister-in-law to adopt the Eveland baby. At this time, it's not clear if charges will be dropped against the other 4 defendants in the case, one of which is Smith's ex-wife and former law partner, Donna Marie Albright Smith. These charges were originally filed in May of 2011.
Cash flow at the Bradford Regional Medical Center is reportedly bleak. The hospital settled an ongoing 2004 federal whistleblower lawsuit agreeing to pay $2.75 million to settle allegations that a pair of doctors got kickbacks in 2003 and earlier for referring patients. Now plaintiffs in the suit are asking for attorney's fees, which local hospital officials say could cripple the budget. An affidavit in the case says the hospital lost an average of $3 million a year for 12 years. But since 2011, the hospital has slowly gone from red to black with an operating surplus of around $321,000 in 2012. But the Bradford Era reports that numerous vendors already have the hospital on a cash up front basis.
Chronic wasting disease was recently discovered in Pennsylvania white-tailed deer. So far, though, the Game Commission says it hasn't spread to the elk herd. The disease that's comparable to mad cow disease is spread through animal bodily fluids and contact with contaminated soil. It causes weight loss, excessive urination, and increased thirst.
Officials tonight have released new information on a weekend chimney fire in Portville. No one was injured. The fire was contained to the chimney at the building on Windfall Road. Now, firefighters worked for 2 hours to contain that blaze, left minimal damage to the structure.
Well, Olean Common Council is meeting tonight to discuss a possible rate hike for its ambulance services. Olean Common Council member Matt Keller says he will propose a 65% rate increase for basic life support and a 57% increase for advanced life support. These rates haven't increased since 2009, but Keller said the city's rates are too low, drastically behind Salamanca and Allegheny, and for the increase, it would set them on track for rising costs. Mayor Linda Witt says she is in support of the proposal.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is calling an Associated Press story on him this past weekend false, claiming that he's going forward cautiously on okaying fracking in New York State. Cuomo says he was never close to giving the go-ahead to fracking. The governor says he's urging his self-appointed health and environment commissioners to work expeditiously but accurately in discovering if fracking will negatively impact the health of those in the area of the wells. He said despite its economic benefits to the state where it needs jobs most, he doesn't want it in New York State if it will harm Empire State residents.
Well, have you ever wanted to keep your cell phone but switch your cell phone carriers? Well, after statements made by President Barack Obama today, that could be a reality. WVTT's Alexa Olson was on assignment for us tonight, and she brings us the latest information in this story.
President Obama came out today saying he's in support of reversing a ban on unlocking phones. Now, I'm talking about taking smartphones like an iPhone or an Android phone and not being able to switch it to a different carrier. Now, this all came about when online protests drew about 100,000 signatures, and one of their biggest complaints is that you can't switch from carrier to carrier and keep your same phone. If you want to switch to a carrier, you have to actually buy a new phone. Now, leading advocates against the ban say it violates property ownership rights, and White House senior advisor for the Internet Innovation and Privacy, his name's David Edelman, says it's important to the secondhand value of phones. And now Congress will have to change the federal copyright law in order for the unlocking of phones to be allowed. Now, this law is from Section 1201. It's called the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which states, quote, "No person shall circumvent a technological measure that effectively controls access to a work protected." Now, we went around in the Twin Tiers and we're talking to some people to get their view on if this should be allowed. This is what they had to say.
I believe it should be legal. After you've been with them for a few years, you've been loyal to them, you should be able to switch your carrier.
I'm not entirely sure. I guess it depends on the extent, like who can do it, how it's done, things like that.
Now, the law as it stands right now is if you take that phone that you're using and switch to another contract, you could be going to jail for about 5 years and pay a $500,000 fine. Reporting for WVTT News, I'm Alexa Olson.
Cell phone companies are saying that being able to lock cell phones is an essential part of their business model, and to keep customers, they say they need to bring the price of a new phone down if the customer pledges a new long-term commitment with that particular carrier.
Valerie, a local foundation that has donated more than $2.3 million in charitable donations since 2001 is still giving after its founder's death back in 2010. The Mildred Milliman Fund has slated 35 local and national nonprofit organizations to receive grants in 2013. Now, the vast bulk of this year's money is going to Olean General Hospital, roughly $152,000 of $184,000 in total grants this past year. Meanwhile, the Cattaraugus County Legislature is slated to review agricultural funding, among other things, in its Wednesday meeting in Little Valley. Lawmakers will review a proposal to increase cooperative extension funding by $10,000 up to $60,000 this year, which is still a cut back from its $300,000 funding several years ago. That extension program funds 4-H programs. The county also plans to extend the Food Stamp Nutrition Education Program for one more year. It's set to expire this September 30th. The legislature plans to apply for the local government efficiency grant, as the county has talked about a cooperative public works facility in the Olean area, and up to $5,000 has been allotted for this week's hiring of TVGA consultants to help the county prepare revitalization strategies that will apply for funding for sites in various areas of Cattaraugus County. WVTT is covering tomorrow's Cat County Legislature meeting in Little Valley. Lots more news still to come here on Twin Tiers Evening News. Our first look at weather is straight ahead. Also, WVTT's information overload, and a huge day for the stock market. Where did it close? We'll tell you next. here on Twin Tiers Evening News on News Channel 25 WVTT.